So for Christmas, someone in chat gifted enough subs that we reached the first Hierathon goal, which was to react to and then complete reading the story that I wrote whenever I was 14. If you want to see parts 1 through 4 that have jump scare of my in real life face, those are also on this YouTube channel.
How many subs do you need before we publish this book for real? I have open in a window that none of you are going to see because I don't want you reading the rest of the shit that's on here. Chapter 13. Midnight information. Someone was throwing stuff at me. Pebbles, maybe. One of them hit my arm, then my stomach. One of them hit my nose. Hey! I sat up. Ow! I held my head. I had the worst headache I've ever had. I remembered what happened. I felt the back of my head and found some blood. Not as much blood as I thought before, but there was some. So her head has just been bleeding out, like it's still kind of bleeding. I slowly stood up, holding onto the wall for support. Groundling! Groundling, are you in there? A voice came from the window. I looked up into the face of the food man. How's his head out there? Didn't she say, it was I don't know. Yeah, my head is bleeding. It wasn't that hard to stand now. Just swiftly getting up and down made things dizzy. Something about blood rushing to the head. I never paid attention in class. It was starting to bite me in the butt. 15 feet tall, fall onto stone, and only slight bleeding. Normal things. It was onto like a hay bale, but yeah. Good heavens, turn around, child, let me see. I did as instructed, pointing to the blood. He looked at it. How on earth did you do that? I lifted up the camera without a word, and he smiled. I'm sorry, I don't have any bandages or even water to clean up your wound. Tomorrow, when I bring your food, I'll help you clean it up and find out how badly you're damaged. Try to get some rest, but keep the hay out of it. He nodded, satisfied with himself. Now, I have important information that you must know, and I haven't got very much time. I listened. Oh, where to begin? Do you know how the war was started? Well, they teach us in school and but you didn't listen. That would be a no there. He rolled his eyes. Kids nowadays. Okay, about 100. Oh, here's our world building, maybe. About 100 or so years ago, there was this dictator named Harry Scheinman. He had an unstoppable army and was just conquering, conquering, conquering. There was a group of people who opposed him, though. A lot of our records about them were destroyed, but we know that they were planning to kill Scheinman. A lot of them were soldiers in his army that were acting as spies. One was even a general, he was their leader. We don't know his name, though. The government has tried to pretend they didn't exist. Anyway, when they did attack, they weren't prepared for Scheinman's actual forces. It was very poorly planned. Every single one was captured and exiled to a part of the country that had a very small population. Scheinman decided that wasn't good enough. He wanted the rebels dead, not just exiled. He launched missiles at the land, not caring if he killed a few of his own people. An eccentric woman in the area, Lene. Who? Lene. Her name was Lene. She was mayor of the bunker for the first few years. She had an enormous bunker in the basement because she was terrified of nuclear war. Her mansion was just as big underground as it was above. She opened her doors and let all of the rebels in. Some of the people who lived in the area came as well. They stayed down there, living on the enormous food storage she had. Eventually, we either ran out of food or it spoiled or something like that. They took a vote and sent a few people up to the surface. They scouted and spied and learned about the sacred hour, as well as some other things. The mansion had been bulldozed and a whole town rebuilt. That's how it's been ever since. Thought that was gonna be Harry Styles for a moment there. Her skull must be made out of steel. This is going up, right? I want to hear the rest of this, but family. Yeah, I'll post it. Yeah. A prepper. You can enjoy the VOD later. Have fun! Yeah. I hope putting it up isn't death or torture or worse. Actually, I should put like a timestamp thing because I should put this as a YouTube video. Where's the add stream marker? There we go. Close enough. He nodded. Do you know what the sacred hour is? Supposedly it's a weekly celebration of when you all sent us underground. He raised his eyebrows and chuckled a bit. And do you think everyone in the world celebrates it? I never stopped to think about it. It didn't really matter as long as this city did. That's all we cared about. Well, I don't know, do they? Nope. I looked about uncomfortably. So why does this place do that? He chuckled dryly. People keep like chuckling darkly, chuckling evilly, chuckling dryly. When the rest of the world heard that Scheinman killed a lot of innocent people just to get rid of a few traitors, they turned on him. They put him out of power. His army rebelled against him. A few of his supporters and himself fled to this place. They built a wall around a large piece of land and rebuilt the city. Scheinman wouldn't let anyone in or out. It stayed that way. The children were raised to believe that the Scheinman family was all-powerful, almost godlike. They're never allowed to leave, and no one is allowed to enter. It's been that way for years. Wait. Are you saying the war is over? Yep, it's been over for years. So why do we keep on fighting? Why do you all still arrest us? Jeremy is a descendant of Scheinman, and in my opinion, he's the worst yet. His father invented the sacred hour and trained him to believe he was a god. He gets anything and everything he wants. He loves making people miserable. He won't let anyone leave, and if they do, they're killed. It's so sad. So, she thought that there was gonna be like there was a war and that the whole world was like fighting in it. But it turns out that like this like evil dictator bombed this place, and then whenever his people kicked him out, he decided, you know where I want to live? The place that I bombed. And so he moved in and like built a city on top, and no one like they just bulldozed her house and no one noticed the giant underground bunker, I guess. And and yeah. I I don't know, man. I'm changing our category to uh is it reading and writing or writing and reading? Yeah. Okay. So, how on earth did you find out all this if he doesn't let you leave? My parents were full supporters of Jeremy's father. They did all they could to please him. They forced me to work in the prisons. I deliver food to the prisoners. It's not that hard of a job. I clean up, I keep track of who comes and goes. One day there was a reporter in prison for trying to sneak into the city. She was doing a documentary on our city. Jeremy caught her and locked her up. She was terrified and told me how it was all over, that Jeremy was stringing us along, that everything we believed in was wrong. I was scared by that, but still, I was curious. I talked to a few of the people who tried to escape the city. They told me about how they believed there was a better world out there, and I told them what I heard from the reporter. They were fully enraged by this, believing every word she said. We dug a hole under the wall and visited the cities, interviewing people, researching history. Everything the reporter had said was true. Jeremy was just a tyrant who enjoyed having power. The whole Scheinman dynasty was so in love with the war Harry started that they wouldn't let it end. There was no real reason to fight, but they kept on killing the rebels and torturing the people who opposed them. They're all sick and demented freaks. Why did you come back then? Wait, but Jeremy Jeremy is 16. And he comes from a long line of sick demented freaks. It runs in the family. Why did you come back then? If you found out the outside world was so much better, why didn't you just stay? I had family here, friends. I had to come back and help them. A lot of the people who were with me when we left came back as well. We've been talking to prisoners, common people, trying to win them over to our side. If we can get enough people together, we can take Jeremy out of power, tear the walls down, free the groundlings. The only problem is that we keep getting caught. So many people are caught up in Jeremy's lie that they turn us in, and when they do, we're sacrificed. Sacrificed? To who? To Jeremy. During the sacred hour, we are all supposed to worship Jeremy. We're told various tales of heroic deeds that were done in the war. We are read a letter from the king. There is no king. Jeremy makes up the letters, pretending the war is going on, pretending he is receiving orders to keep the townspeople inside the city, to keep them safe from the battles outside. He is living in his own little world, and he's forcing us all to go with him. Blood for the Jeremy god! He sacrifices prisoners on an altar. He'll most likely sacrifice you, too. I took a deep breath, steadying myself. Did he sacrifice Lace? Who? The other prisoner that came in with me. Jeremy dragged him away. He's dead. Did Jeremy sacrifice him, too? A look of confusion was upon his face. Jeremy doesn't just kill people in the middle of the week. He only kills them as a sacrifice during the sacred hour. Joy burst open in my heart like a bomb. So, my friend, he might still be alive? Yeah, he probably is. He's probably just been moved to another cell. Tomorrow I will look for him and check my records. For now, I have to go before I'm spotted. Try to keep your wound clean. I'll help you tomorrow. Reading them letters that he made up, forcing them to live out his fantasy. Are you sure Jeremy isn't the self-insert? Reminder, he was already pretty much this evil at 13. But Jeremy was living underground with Becky a few years ago, right? Yeah, he like was like the prince or whatever of this of this thing, okay? And so he, I don't know, at some point like snuck into the base to spy on them and like pretend to be some sad orphan or something. And so they took him in and he lived with them for a while, but he was like spying on them because he kept leaving. Like he kept like leaving and then like getting lost. He was getting lost and like getting taken away, and that happened 3 times, and on the 3rd time he didn't come back. So like, so yeah, I don't, he was doing this all through like his middle and high school years, just sneaking around down there. And I don't know where his dad is. His former, the former lord of this. But I'm assuming that I would assume that like his dad was running the city while his kid was out spying. There are no parents. This old guy is an aberration. Oh, so he's even more comically evil. Yeah, apparently. He came to this dungeon, the dungeon, to inappropriately and forcefully entangle with a fellow 13-year-old. Yeah, I don't know. He was spying on them and then just like also decided to shack up with a kid his own age. At least everyone's the same age, man. I don't know. At least it's age appropriate. Only after she combed her hair, probably. But remember, he constantly reminded her that she was a bad kisser, because that was like one of my nightmares. I was so scared that I would be a bad kisser. It would like be the most traumatic thing to like make out with some guy and then he's like, by the way, you suck at kissing, and I'd be like, no. After all, why not? Why shouldn't I keep her? Okay. The next chapter, chapter 14, door number 2. I couldn't sleep. I lied down on the floor on my stomach, cradling my head in my hands to keep the backside of my head off the floor. What? I lied down on the floor on my stomach, so she's face down, cradling my head in my hands to keep the back of my head off of the floor. I mean, if you're on your stomach, it's not going to be on the floor anyway. Whatever. I tried to sleep, but I couldn't stop thinking about everything Food Man said. We were fighting for nothing. We were dying for nothing. Things seemed bad, except for the fact that Lace might still be alive. Lace. Oh, I would have given anything in the world to see him again. I started to imagine how our reunion would be. He would smile and run to me, and I would start crying, and he'd be concerned because my head is bleeding, but I wouldn't care because he was safe, and I'd never let go. Ever. I loved him. I stopped. I loved him? I took a deep breath and squeezed my eyes tight. Did I? I suppose I always have. We'd been best friends since we were little babies. We'd known each other our whole lives. We were always there for each other. The only thing that ever tore us apart was Jeremy. Jeremy. I wanted his head on a platter. I wanted him dead. I wanted him more than dead. I wanted him to be tortured for the rest of eternity. I hated him with a hate I didn't know it could ever exist. I was convinced he was the worst person alive. Worst being alive. Worst thing in the whole universe! With multiple exclamation points. After all, why not? What? No, yes, and a field of flowers, of course. Or worse, right? They're gonna run into each other's arms on a beach at sunset. I stared at the ceiling, my emotions going from hating Jeremy to loving Lace to being scared of Jeremy to missing Lace. These two boys are all she thinks about. It was a roller coaster of good and bad emotions until the sky in my window started to turn a pink color. I hadn't slept. This probably wasn't a good thing, but I couldn't change that now. I sat up and watched the door, listening to every sound, hoping it was a footstep. I willed Food Man to come with every fiber of my being. A key rattled in the door, and my heart leapt at the sound. A familiar chubby face peered in through the crack in the door. Groundling, are you awake? I scurried to the door as quickly as I could without getting dizzy. He had a towel, a jug of water, and a bowl of food. He set the food down on the floor and had me bend over. Oh my, there wasn't much light last night. I didn't see how much blood you had lost. This is a rather bad gash. He poured the water on my head, gently dabbing at it with the towel. Maybe it'll look better when it's clean. Occasionally I'd wince in pain as he touched the sensitive areas, but the hardest thing was not to ask about Lace. I had to be patient. Oh, look, he dabbed at my hair a little and stood back. It's only a small gash. It's deep, though, but it should heal up nicely. You're lucky, child. It could have been a lot worse. Girl needs stitches. I smiled and stood up straight. Did you, get any information? Oh, yes, I'm so sorry. I have good news and bad news. Crap. What's the good news? He's alive, and he's in the cell right next to you. My heart jumped. My soul screamed. I felt energy rising up all through me, ready to face anything. What's the bad news? Well, I think you should come see. He pushed the door open wide and let me out. I slowly stepped into the hallway, wondering what would happen if we were caught. He didn't seem worried, though. He walked to the next door down the hall and unlocked it. Before opening the door, he turned to me. Are you sure you want to see this? I nodded, scared of what lay behind the door. He took a deep breath, nodded, and opened the door. Bum, bum, bum. Excuse me, what? A deep head injury. Yeah, she has a small but deep, so like a puncture wound on the back of her head that has been bleeding so much that she passed out, and when she woke back up, it still was kind of bleeding. Her skull. Okay, the next chapter is called Worse. Oh no! Worse! How thick is her skin that I can be that deep? So she died in that cell. It's actually called Worse. It is. Okay, but we have to run an ad, so. Peak fiction! Okay, I'm gonna run the ad. Chapter 15. Worse. Light spread across a cell just like mine. Rocks, a window, hay. I scanned the room, looking for Lace. I could see nothing. Where is he? Food Man's face was distorted with sadness as he pointed to a huddled form beneath the window. Chapter 15. Burger King foot lettuce? What? No, I don't know. I don't want to know what that is. I slowly walked into the room. Food Man, who has now been shortened to one word and capitalized like that's actually his name. Food Man quietly shut the door behind me. I'll be back later. I called out softly, Lace? Is that you? The form stirred a little. A broken, dry voice cracked. Becky? I took a few steps closer. Are you all right? I kneeled down onto the ground, trying to see him in the little light that shone. Come into the light, I can't see you. He pushed himself into the small patch of sunlight. I gasped with horror. Half of his face was swollen, one eye swollen shut. His mouth and nose were bleeding. He held his arm protectively. It was bent in an odd position. All over his body were cuts and bruises. He could barely move, barely speak. He lifted his head and looked at me as if he were ashamed of himself. I ran to him, put my arms around him. I was crying, but not out of joy. I didn't care about anything that had happened to me. I didn't care about what would happen to me. He was 2 inches away from death. What happened? I finally said. Jeremy. His body shook. I hate him. Me too. I looked into his face, but he wouldn't look up. He kept shaking. I wasn't sure if it was anger or fear. Don't worry. We'll kill him. It's no use. Tears were falling from his eyes. He was shaking. His voice was broken. He's already done so much damage to so many lives. We'll fix all that. We'll. No! He glared at me, anger pouring out of him like I had never seen before. He just. You don't know the whole story. He buried his head in his unbroken arm. I was quiet. I didn't say a word. I waited for him to speak in case he was going to. Finally, he stopped shaking and his voice got quiet. Do you know how my parents died? Oh, his parents are dead. Okay. I never thought about it, never dwelled on it. He was adopted. We left it at that. No. His voice was so small I could barely hear it. It was my birthday. My parents worked topside, keepers and looters and such. They decided to take me up with them. What the hell is this? Like, we're doing this super dangerous thing. Let's just bring the kids. It was beautiful. It was the first time I had seen the sky. I was 6 years old. He traced the lines in the rock floor, tears falling freely onto his fingers. We stayed up too long. We wandered too far. We were captured. This seems to happen a lot. Jeremy took us into his castle. He tied my parents up, but let me stand by and watch. He asked me if I was scared. I said yes, and he stabbed my father. I cried out, and he stabbed him again. Every tear that fell from my eyes, he'd hurt them somehow. He kept asking if I was scared, if I was sad, if I was angry. I would say no, and tears would fall. I couldn't control my emotions. He just laughed and kept hurting my parents for every single thing I felt. After they were both dead, he looked at me and asked if I felt anything. I said no, and I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just said no. He smiled and told me I could go home. He showed me to the hatch and left me there. Mr. Calm with no emotions. It made sense. Does it? Did you tell them what happened? No, he gently wiped his eyes. I wouldn't talk for the longest time. They just assumed I guessed. I processed this in my head. Wait, but Jeremy would have been our age. How could he? Oh, he's a lot older than that. He was about 15 when he killed my parents. He's at least 25, maybe older. What? Wait a minute! Hold on! Hold on! Wait a minute! Wait. Okay. Okay, wait a second. When Lace was 6, Jeremy was 15. So Jeremy is 9 years older. So assuming that Lace and Becky are the same age, since she said they were like best friends since birth. When he was 13, what's 13 plus 9? He was 22. When she was 13, when she was 13, he was 22. Wow, okay. Wow. Okay. Moving on. I held him and he cried. He cried for the longest time and I just let him. I felt sorry for him. I remembered all the times I had thought how horrible it was that he concealed his emotions, but it wasn't his fault. Food Man eventually came back and made me go back to my cell. There is no security in this place. Lace was broken, physically and mentally and emotionally, and I had to leave him. And that was far worse than torture. This is the second thing that has been far worse than torture. He is, in fact, really evil, apparently. But how does a 22-year-old pass for a 13-year-old? How did anyone look at this 22-year-old man and be like, oh, a child? Tell that to Hollywood. That is true. That's just YA fiction logic. His balls didn't drop. This is chapter 16. Fingers. My best friend in high school was absolutely that exact kid. Yeah, but like 22? And they're gonna look like a kid. I don't know. But then again, there are no parents underground. There are no parents, like, at all. Except for, dying tragically for poor Lace. I sat in my cell, feeling like I had reached a dead end. There was nothing to do now. I had killed the camera. I had heard the information from the food man. I had seen Lace. I was just supposed to sit here and wait for Jeremy's goons to come so they could kill me to fuel a war that wasn't even going on. Also, I love how the or worse you were alluding to in previous chapters was this insane plot twist. It was all intentional foreshadowing. Honestly, like, as shitty as this is, 14-year-old me, like, actually, like, wrote this kid, like, dissociating all the time, and it was just like, oh, he's just so quiet and stoic, and then it's like, boom, backstory. Depressing stuff. At least I knew Lace was alive. That was good enough for me. I crawled over to the wall and pressed my face against it. He was just on the other side of this wall. That was all that was keeping us apart. A few feet of rock. Something scurried past my hand and I shrieked. Rats. They were always startling me, their whiskers rubbing me when I didn't expect it, or their little claws scampering across me in the night. At least they weren't chewing on me, for that I was grateful. I looked down at the rat as it ran along the side of the wall and into a little hole that I supposed was its home. A light bulb went off in my head. I crawled over to where I had seen the rat go. I pressed my face to the dirty stone floor and looked for a hole. I couldn't see any hole-like objects in the darkness. I pulled my head up, figuring it was over, when I saw a flash of light. I immediately threw myself back onto the floor. The hole went straight through into the other cell. How fortunate for me! A rat's face poked around the corner of the other entrance and I jumped. He sniffed my face and then left me alone. I silently thanked him for digging such a great passageway. Is she about to stick her, like, arm into a rat hole? Girl, this is how you get the Black Plague. A hole-like object. She's not smart. We have been over this. Lace, I spoke quietly. Lace, can you hear me? I found a small hole in the wall. Oh, please answer me. I know you think there's no hope, but there is. There is hope. We have a friend here, the man who serves us food. He told me a lot of things that I think you need to know. Please, Lace, please. I sighed, hoping he was at least there. You stubborn thing. Maybe you're sleeping. Yeah, that's probably it. Well, sleep on then. You need your rest. I bunched up some hay and laid my head down. I stared through the hole, watching for any movement. So she's decided to sleep with her face, like, right against the rat hole. Is this how you get your nose chewed off? I could see a bit of the light from the window. It was shining down onto a pile of hay. Occasionally, some rats would dash around it or go on top of it. My eyes were starting to close. Lack of sleep was creeping up on me like a plague. I yawned and whispered, I love you, Lace. Good night. I heard the squealing of rats and I opened my eyes. The hay pile was moving. Any notion about sleep was immediately gone. I watched the pile turn slowly around and Lace's face appeared. Where are you? I'm over here. I tossed some dirt through the hole. The rats have a tunnel that connects these two rooms. If you can crawl over here, we can talk. He struggled to sit up, leaning on his arm. He cried out and held it protectively. Come on, Lace, use your other arm. Don't give up on me. What are we gonna do, Becky? We don't even have weapons. He scooted himself closer to the wall. I smiled. I have a scalpel! I scratched it along the floor so he could hear. Oh, that's nice. That'll start bullets. I stared at his knee. Where is this hole? It's on the ground. You practically have to lie down to see into it. I reached my hand into the rat tunnel, stretching my fingers as far as they would go. Can you see my fingers? I wiggled them. Just barely, he said, lying down in front of the hole. He touched the tips of my fingers. Hi, I heard him smile. Hey, I smiled back. Please don't give up, Lace. There's still hope left. He sighed. How? I'm too weak and wounded to fight. You have a scalpel, which isn't my idea of a weapon of choice. There's nothing we can do. Wrong. I started scratching my name in the rock. We have Food Man. Food Man can't help us. Yes, he can. He practically runs this prison. He's in control of almost everything except when Jeremy tells him otherwise. Jeremy. Yeah, that's the key word there, Becky. Jeremy. He rules everything. He decides who lives and who dies, and he's decided we die. You don't know that for sure. I wondered where all this optimism was coming from. He could just plan on imprisoning us for life. No, he's going to kill us. He's going to sacrifice us during the sacred hour to prove to the people that they can't go against the government and live to tell about it. Well, when he does, we'll escape. We'll escape before he has a chance to do anything to us. We have a secret weapon, communication. We can plan things out in advance and take him completely by surprise. He's gonna kiss us and then kill us. I tried to keep my voice down to a whisper, but you have to do something for me. Find the camera in your cell. Everyone has one. Find it and tear it down. If you don't, he'll be able to hear every word we say. If you can't find it, then we'll have to talk really quietly, and don't let him know what we're doing. So, like, the camera's hearing this, like, now. Probably. Lace glanced around the room suspiciously. Where is it? It's on the ceiling, I yawned, my exhaustion creeping up on me. Mine was right above the window. You should check there. His voice got softer. We should sleep. He kissed his fingers and touched them to mine. Good night, Becky. I held my hand close to me, soaking up every bit of him that I could. Good night. It's not the only plague creeping up on you. The actual plague is coming. They're touching fingertips in a rat hole. It's romantic. What did you pin? This is why we kill parents, and I'm on a list. I'm impressed by the amount of accidental innuendo. And it was all extremely accidental because I didn't know what I was doing at all. Okay, this is chapter 17. It's called Dun Dun Dun. Although, in like, I don't know, 30 or 45 minutes, I need to go because I gotta wrap presents. A sound effect is a title. This is peak literature. I must have slept for a long time. When I opened my eyes, I was lying in my own drool. There was light pouring in through my window, and a door was opening. That's what had woken me up in the first place. Let's go, I heard a gruff voice said. I looked at my door. There was no one there. I quickly looked through the hole and saw Lace get up and walk away. I hopped to my feet and ran to the door. I reached out towards it. When it opened, I jumped back in horror. You too, Missy, he grabbed my wrist and pulled me out of my cell. I felt like a little animal that was cornered in a cage. There was nowhere to run, but yet I knew in my heart that I must run. I was about to make a dash in any direction I could when he grabbed my wrist and pulled me out. No need to be stupid, he chuckled. He was joined by Jeff, who had Lace at gunpoint. Seeing him in full light shocked me. He was far worse off than I had thought. We were ushered along through what seemed like endless halls. Nobody spoke. We just walked on and on and on. We winded through endless hallways, past monotonous stone floors and walls. After a while, I started noticing the door with a crack appeared over and over again, and the hall with a flag at the end. We'd passed it 6 times. Why are we going in circles? I asked. Jeff laughed. Glad you noticed, princess. He shouldered into a door and brought us into it. It was a dark stone room, not unlike the others, with 2 big flaming torches on either side of a platform. Dramatically, Jeremy stood in the center of the torches, clad in his dark cape. He had his hands folded and was staring at the ground. Leave them with me, his voice echoed. I knew I should be scared, but I couldn't stop from wanting to laugh. This whole place was so predictable. Lace shifted uncomfortably as he stared at the ground. A giggle escaped my lips. Ahem, I bit my lip. Jeremy? Yes. He looked up at us. I swear he was wearing eyeliner. What are we doing here? You are here, he pressed his fingertips against each other, because I have brought you here. I almost burst out laughing, my fear turning to fits of chuckles, uncontrollable at that. Nice, genius. So why did you bring us here? Lace continued to stare at the floor. Jeremy threw his arms back, making his cape shudder. Do not underestimate my power. He clenched a fist as if squashing my head. You could die in an instant if I simply said the word. I opened my mouth to say something. Becky. Lace looked at me slightly. Cool it. I took a breath, took the advice I was given. Jeremy chuckled. So, you've both destroyed your cameras. Smart move. I glanced at Lace, who was smiling. But I did hear enough to know you're planning to escape. He took a long, deep breath and walked toward us. Good luck with that. He ran his fingertips through my hair. You do realize that if you escape the sacred hour and I catch you, he leaned in to kiss my neck. You're mine. Lay off, Jeremy. Lace growled slightly, sort of startling. What is this? Jeremy spun around and laughed. You're standing up to me? My eyes went wide. Don't do it, don't do it, don't do it. Yes, Lace narrowed his non-swollen eye. I am. Flashes of Lace being brutally murdered appeared in my mind. He didn't mean that, I said quickly. His brain is sputtering out because of blood loss, which is kind of your fault, but. In one move, he had us both on the ground. Lace was holding his hurt arm, and I was just stunned. Be quiet, both of you. Jeremy took his place on this wannabe creepy stage. You can try to escape if you want, but I promise you will be unsuccessful. If you do try to escape, you will be killed. If you don't try to escape, you will be sacrificed during the sacred hour. If you take your own life, I will kill the other. He looked from me to Lace, then back to me. Is that clear? I scrambled to my feet and delivered a sharp salute. Yes, sir, and sir is in all caps. The whole room rumbled with his anger. Quit mocking me. He stormed at me, grabbing my arm. Harley, come get this other one, he shouted over his shoulder as he threw me into an adjoining room. You will pay for your smart mouth. To be honest, that was not a bad speech for the villain, actually. I quite like it. That's why this one is titled Dun Dun Dun. Chapter 18 is Weapon of Choice. I stumbled into the room he threw me into. Do you not realize the power I have over you? He screamed at me. I could kill you in an instant. I stood up as tall as I could, still only coming to his chin. But you won't. He struck me across the face. It stung, but still, it seemed like he was reluctant to do any real damage to me. Do you want me to do to you what I did to your boyfriend? Huh? Do you? I will. I backed up slowly, scarily teetering on the edge of recognizing reality. He glared at me and followed me as I backed myself into a wall. You are going to die, whether you want to believe it or not. He grabbed my shirt and threw me onto the floor. You should be grateful I haven't killed you already. I looked up into his crazed eyes. You can't. It's against regulations. His foot slammed into my side again and again and again. Against regulations, huh? Who told you that? He continued kicking me. Somebody's giving you information. I will find out who and I will kill them. I knew he was crushing my internal organs. I just knew it. Get up, bitch. Oh! Oh! He kicked me again. I said get up! I tried to lift myself up, my entire side screaming with pain. Worthless. I kept trying to crawl away and grab onto the wall, clawing my way off the floor. He kicked me again, and I fell back down. I curled up into a ball to avoid more kicks. You coward! You act all brave and strong until you're actually confronted with violence. Your actions do not support your words. My fingers found my boots and slowly reached inside. He took a step and reached towards me. I swung at him with my scalpel. Armed with fury-found strength, I slashed and stabbed and scratched at him with my tiny blade. He took a step backwards, and I plunged it deep into his leg. He screeched in horror as I scurried to the door. I threw it wide and ran as fast as I could with my injuries. The circular route we had taken left me completely lost. I ran aimlessly, knowing I was safe nowhere. I passed the cracked door in the hall with the flag before reaching a familiar door. Smiling inwardly, I threw myself at it. It was locked. I heard Jeremy shouting taunts echoing down the halls, followed by heavy footsteps. The guards must have been alerted. Remembering all the old Jackie Chan movies I had watched. No! No! No, 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 no! No, what is happening? What is going to happen? No, I don't want to read anymore. I'm done. This isn't fun anymore. Remembering all the old Jackie Chan movies I had watched, I backed up and faced the door. I delivered a beautiful karate kick to the door. Nothing. I tried again with the other leg. The footsteps were growing louder. I threw myself into the door with a flurry of fists. Ting! I heard something metal hit the floor. I looked around and saw a small shining key. Oh, you've got to be kidding me. Jeremy's ever louder voice reminded me not to question a blessing. I thrust the key in the lock, open the door, took the key back, ran into the room, slammed the door, and locked it tight. I took a deep breath as I looked around the torture room. Beautiful, beautiful torture room. And they hadn't reinstalled the camera. But isn't he in charge? Yeah, but like, I don't know, he has his own rules, I guess. I would say politics, but then I remembered the whole shtick of this place is that it's some splinter from the original war and ruled by an iron fist, so yeah, what the hell? Movies are canon. My prayers for world building was answered in the most cringe way possible. I think that's the worst part of the story. Mm. Chapter 19 is called Cell Time Again. I knew my time was limited, so I ran about the room quickly. There were several small hooks and knives I could easily slip into my boots, sleeves, and pockets. I did so with care. I noticed a first aid kit on the table. How ironic. I heard the footsteps, and Jeremy's voice stopped before the torture room door. Pounding began. That is absolutely the worst part. If she had had the capacity to convert Jackie Chan into reality, why had she never done this before? We don't question it, okay? And presumably never will again. She had the ability to karate kick a door open, I guess, enough to like make the key fall down. Because it's an evil villain castle, but they put the keys to the door up on the like the frame. I flung open the kit and grabbed bandages and disinfectant. I shoved these into whatever places weren't occupied. Crawling under a table, I spit on my fingers and dabbed fake tears onto my cheeks. I started pretending to snivel and whine while pinching my arms as hard as I could. My nose clogged up and tears were brimming. I heard the doors burst open. I raised my sniveling up a notch, crying with all the drama I had within my soul, and believe me, she has a lot of it. Jeremy quietly stepped to me and leaned down to look at me. I shuddered and twitched, barely peeking out through my fingers. See, he smiled. Now you understand. He took a step back. Lawrence, take her back to her cell. I like how all the goons get names. I allowed myself to be helped to my feet by a giant man with blonde hair. Now you respect true power. I quivered my lip, letting a sob escape. Lawrence pushed a gun into my pained side, and I winced. We walked back to my cell, and he left me inside. I stood still, waiting until I heard no sound from the hall, before I flew to the small rat's tunnel. Lace? Lace, are you in there? I could hear movement from his cell, but it was possibly the rats. Lace! Lace! Oh my gosh, no! Lace! My overconfidence shattered, and I practically was screaming, Lace! You're alive? I saw a hand appear in the tunnel. Yes, Lace, but jeez! Can't you at least answer when people think you're dead? Sorry. I saw the outline of his face in the darkness. It took me a while to realize you weren't my imagination. What happened? I started pulling things out of my pockets. I got kicked pretty bad. I might be bleeding internally, but wait, if I were, I'd be dead by now, wouldn't I? I think so. Biology. Let's see. I think we skipped class that day we talked about that. How come that's like my excuse for not Googling anything about anything? Like, instead of looking up this information, I just had the characters be like, oh, I don't pay attention in school. I'm just stupid. Internal bleeding. A phrase I probably learned from CSI and just internal bleeding is not covered in bio. Because you definitely also didn't pay. And at 14, I hadn't had a biology class yet. We had us doing like earth science and stuff. I didn't even take biology until like junior year of high school. You're realizing that too? I chuckled a bit. I've noticed that everything worth knowing about life I missed out on because I either didn't pay attention or I didn't show up. He flat out laughed. Man, we sound like horrible kids. Oh, but we are. I had everything lined up in front of me. The good thing, however, is that Jeremy is stupid. Really? Sarcasm dripped out of his words. I thought he was a genius. I stabbed him in the leg with my scalpel, plus got a lot of goodies from the torture room. Goodies, torture room, doesn't add up. I tossed some disinfectant through the tunnel. Put this on your wounds and don't complain. It'll fight the infection and might help you heal faster. I shoved the bandages through as well. Apply these as necessary. Yes, Dr. Becky. I heard the bottle and the bandages as he used them. I felt superior to all the evil in the world. Anything else? I got a bunch of little sharp things. Nice. Be quiet. It felt good to joke around for once. Both of us were feeling a little overconfident at our small victory over Jeremy. There's 6 of them. You can have these 3, and I can have these 3. I felt them in the dark, picked which ones I wanted, and slid the others over to him. So, he tossed the empty bottle at me. Do you have a plan to escape? No, but I'm sure to think of one eventually, I smiled confidently. Really? No, probably not. Great. Also, it was 2004. Google was a thing, but it wasn't something people automatically went to answer a question yet. This is true. It was for me. Yeah, we would have all had Ask Jeeves tell us. Fair, but the general public didn't for a lot longer after. And Google was terrible at answering questions back then. Me on Yahoo Answers being like, how do you, if you get kicked a lot in the ribs, do you die of internal bleeding? Chapter 20, Happy Friday. Am I pregnante? Luigi board? Oh, stretch. Oh, stretch. Also, all the questions you said you saw on that British forum for middle schoolers is 90% of Yahoo questions. Yeah. Chapter 20, Happy Friday. We stayed up talking most of the night. We didn't talk about Jeremy or our horrible memories from our past. We simply talked. It was a great relief from the usual. We put plans and war and everything behind us and just acted like friends again. We fell asleep eventually, as all good things must come to an end. In the morning, I woke up to the door being opened and Foodman's kind voice. Groundling? Groundling, are you in here? I yawned and stretched. Yes, I'm here. Someone's here to see you. Jeremy, I first thought, but it was Harley's face that appeared. Something didn't seem right. I rubbed my eyes and took another glance. Where's your gun? I raised an eyebrow. No need for guns this early in the morning, he chuckled. I'm sure Adam's told you about the war, hasn't he? Who? Harley raised an eyebrow. Adam, you mean Food Man? They both laughed at me. I guess you could call him that. Anyway, he has told you about the war, right? I almost said yes, but decided against it. No, he hasn't. Why don't you tell me? The gunless man retold the tale I had already heard. Their stories matched up. This could have been for any number of reasons, but for some reason, I felt it was significant. You're not a spy, are you? Why would they need to spy on you? They've already got surveillance. Correction, I pointed at the fallen camera in the corner. They had surveillance. My gosh. Harley chuckled. Okay, then, they had surveillance. Anyway, Jeremy doesn't do much sneaking around. He likes to attack with a full brunt of force. Kind of tacky and cheap. Not very good planning, but that's how he wants to work. Didn't he, have secret spy reconnaissance missions when he was, in middle school? I shrugged. So why are you here anyway? I want to help you, he said with genuine kindness. I know more about this than you or your friend. I am essential. I can help you. Plus, I'm stronger than both of you combined. I decided not to defend my macho-ness. Are you going to help us escape? Yes, he smiled. This is a perfect opportunity for us to disclose to the entire city that Jeremy's war is a fake. All of the rebels in the audience will back us up if anything goes wrong. Plus, once we convince everyone, Jeremy won't have any power. I looked skeptical. I am going to come out of this alive, right? Oh, you're right, when he was 22. He spread his hands wide. I can only do so much, Groundling, but what I can do, I promise you, I will do. I nodded. Good enough for me. I can't be away from my post for too long, or it'll be suspicious. I gotta head back. I'll be back tomorrow, same time. They both left, locking the door behind them. You gonna talk to Lace? I called out to the bars in the window. We already did. I like how, they have surveillance everywhere, but nobody is noticing two people just openly discussing rebellion, on his staff who are, in his own castle, in his own prison. Becky is a surprisingly accepting 16-year-old. She's like, okay, whatever. I'm just sitting here in love with this boy over here, hanging out in the rat hole. Yeah, sure, I'll incite a rebellion for you. No big deal. She is our Katniss, okay? She can't be hesitant in the face of rebellion. Actually, I don't even think Hunger Games had been out at this point. At least I hadn't read it. I didn't read it until they announced the movie. Chapter 21. Plannings. Although my throat and mouth are very upset at me for reading this much and talking this much. So, I think we are going to have to do the last 8 chapters or so tomorrow. Goodbye, VOD watchers.